Good day, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. Reports suggest that Putin may offer Trump financial incentives during a Ukraine summit to sway peace terms in Russia's favor. Israel revives controversial West Bank settlement plan that critics say kills hope for a Palestinian state. Rights groups slam Israeli settlements as a death blow to Palestinian autonomy and peace prospects. NGOs, non-government organizations accuse Israel of using aid regulations as a weapon in Gaza and the West Bank. Israel's Iron Wall campaign expands. Militants kill, thousands displaced in West Bank strongholds. Netanyahu embraces greater Israel vision, triggering outrage across Arab capitals. Founder of anti-ICE app claims Pam Bondi threatened him after app sparked mega outrage. I wonder if Pam Bondi threatened him because he has an app that he created to assist people who are illegally in the country. Revealed that an upcoming Alaska summit that pretty much already took place, no less, that Putin plans to offer Trump financial incentives, including access to Alaska's natural resources and rare earth minerals in exchange for progress in peace in Ukraine. This is a very strategic maneuver appealing to Trump's business instincts, but potentially compromising Ukrainian sovereignty. And while we are in the likes in negotiations and deals with Vladimir Putin, because he holds leverage, because he could potentially destroy Ukraine. And President Trump doesn't want that. So again, I think he's entertaining any sort of negotiations, business deals that could curtail Putin's this invading and expanding within the Ukrainian territory. But my question to President Trump would be this: are you going to fall for President Putin's tricks once again? He knows that by feeding your ego or curtailing the conversation towards business, that you will listen in more closely than you ever had before. Putin has continued, unfortunately, to trick the American president, President Trump, over and over again behind his true intentions of invading and destroying Ukraine. Now, as I once gave the history of the connections between Ukraine and Russia, that they have a very stark and vast history of large parts of Ukraine actually was Russia at one point in time, or part of the Russian Empire and or the Soviet Union. So when we look at the history of these people, again, whether it be Ukrainian, Russian, and a lot of those Eastern European countries, all of them derive from one group of people called the Slavic people. So again, these are brothers and sisters, cousins, aunts and uncles fighting amongst themselves. I believe they know their own history. So again, should America step in to stop, again, the total eradication of Ukraine as a country and the people therein? Or should we let other European nations chime in and negotiate for a ceasefire and or peace treaty? Should we continue to extend our hand way across Europe for them to extrapolate our resources just so President Putin can stop the invading of Ukraine? I'll leave that for you guys, because I know a lot of you guys are quote unquote humanitarians. But again, I look for the betterment of our nation in its totality. And that, again, even before you get to Russia, even before you get to Ukraine, you go through, and I don't mean directly, but you pass countries like Switzerland, France, Great Britain, Poland, and you have Belarus, all these countries that are around that Eastern European, especially when you start to get into the region and territory of Ukraine and Russia. But again, they have enough political power in the region to persuade, negotiate, and in some regards, even force President Putin in order to do so. And again, I told you guys that President Putin has been leaning on China, India, and Turkey for money coming in for their natural resources of oil and natural gas. So again, It's not like Russia needs the UK. You have a big country like India, a large country like China, and another country like Turkey that are buying majority of your oil and gas. I just hope that President Trump doesn't fall for the okey-doke once again, but history tells me it's very, very possible. And I just want you guys to hear what the president has to state regarding this.
Morning with European leaders, and was it your call not to invite President Zelensky to your meeting with Putin?
No, just the opposite. No. We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call. I would rate it a 10, very, very friendly. I know the leaders because I was at NATO, as you know. I took it from 2% to 5%, 2% that wasn't paid, 5% that is paid, which is trillions of dollars in defense capability. No, it was always going to be, I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that, I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders. There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. Again, this is Biden's war. This isn't my war. He got us into this thing, and it should have never happened. This war would have never happened if I were president. But it is what it is, and I'm here to fix it, and I'm here to stop 6,000, 7,000 people last week. 7,213 people last week were killed, mostly soldiers. But missiles being lobbed into towns don't exactly help either, but mostly soldiers. And Ukrainian and Russian, they're not American soldiers, but if we can save a lot of lives, it would be a great thing. I've stopped 5 wars in the last 6 months. And on top of that, we wiped out the nuclear capability of Iran, obliterated it. It's turned out to be a correct word, by the way, because some of the press said, well, maybe it wasn't obliteration. It was obliteration. And we're going to meet with, I would say,
either you get mad or you laugh at President Trump. Either you get mad or you laugh. He said that obliteration, that's the correct word. They were saying that it was obliteration. Oh my God. Don't get me wrong. If I would never be president, by the way, but if I was president, I would definitely be a little more presidential, just a little bit more. I would probably crack a little bit. I will crack some jokes. I will probably have my own antics. But when it comes to negotiation, I know a lot of you are going to get on my bumper about this because, President Trump is a billionaire. He's probably been in, hundreds of thousands of negotiations, so he knows what he's doing. But politics is a very, very different game. Now, take, for instance, if we really wanted to stop the war between Ukraine and Russia, if we really wanted to stop, and I know there's all sorts of bureaucratic red tape that President Trump will have to go through to have Congress on board for our troops to go to war for Ukraine. But in these talks, you don't want to make them volatile where you can't broker a deal. I get it, folks. But when do America say, either we're in or we out, right? We're playing the middleman. We're playing the mediator. We're playing the negotiator. We're trying to make a deal. When are we going to go to our allies in Europe and say, hey, listen, I'm going to meet with President Putin, and if he doesn't agree to some sort of terms of stopping this war, listen, we can do all of these deals. We can garner resources. We can mine here, drill there, farm there, whatever it takes to get this deal done, let's get it done. But if he doesn't agree to nothing, are you agreed upon that all of the allied nations get together and fight against Russia? That's why I popped this up. Because again, as the American people, we're not even really paying attention to Ukraine and Russia unless you are a Ukrainian American, or you're probably born or raised, or your family's from Ukraine and or Russia. You're probably paying more attention to regular American citizens who don't have any affiliations with those countries. But I look at it from the standpoint of economics and how this affects the American economy. It seems as though that America, we're in the same contracts. We're in the same foreign budget plans that we were under the Biden administration. Billions of dollars are being forked out each and every month to Ukraine, as well as Israel and other nations. Just go to the foreignbudget.gov. Check out what I'm referring to, ladies and gentlemen. I've showed that many times before. Now, I don't want to stay here too long. I've already spent too much time on this mess because I just feel as though that America continues to get duped by the way of our president because Putin is keep throwing the rock, hiding the hand. He's doing the whole smoke and mirror things. I'm going to tell you one thing and do another thing. And it's a very basic strategy. I'm going to appease to President Trump's ego and then move on. I digress, ladies and gentlemen. Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich has greenlighted a major settlement project in the E1 area near East Jerusalem, 3,401 housing units to link with existing settlements, which critics warn will bury the idea of a future Palestinian state. And this could physically severe West Bank unity that they're trying to combine this country that in regards are landlocked in certain regions by Egypt and Israel, but they're widely condemned on both humanitarian and geopolitical grounds. Then do something about it. The UN, you started this by the partition plan. All those unifying Western countries, you did this. Now fix it. See, we don't have to wait till, was it August 19th in order to get these things done? Hold an emergency United Nations meeting and stop it today. Because this is what you guys get. You gave Israel land within the Palestinian region, and you never recognized Palestine as a statehood, even though there's millions of Palestinians. And now you have Palestine divided. But you won't do anything to rectify what you fractured. You won't do anything to fix what you have broken. You even allow Israel expand landmass within the Palestinian region through war, through occupation. And all the while, ladies and gentlemen, the only reason why these stories are garnering any sort of light that is bringing to the public view is because of what Hamas has done. Now, as I was thinking about this, even though I do not condone any of the acts of Hamas, especially on October 7, 2023, of killing innocent Israelis, because again, this is governmental. Now, there's even Israelis within the state of Israel stating that it's time for the war to stop. It's time for the chaos to end. It's time for the carnage to subside. You even have Israeli and their families of some of the unfortunate people who were kidnapped and killed by Hamas, stating that it's time for this to end. But it seems as though, allegedly, that the government of Israel does not want this to stop until every region of Palestine becomes Israel, allegedly. Because again, these are some of the tactics that they're using in order to expand Israel and stop a Palestinian statehood. Because again, once the UK Prime Minister, Starmer, President Macron of France, and all the, I believe Australia as well as Canada came out and stated that during the next UN session, they're going to recognize Palestine as a statehood. And President Trump said, nope, no, we're not. And if you do, he's bullying these countries and said, we're going to raise your tariffs. How are you going to try to protect Palestinians, President Trump, and all the while not back their statehood as a country? But Israel was just a country that was constructed in 1948. None of this makes sense, but all of this makes sense. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to confuse you guys at all, because when you look at the history of Palestine and when you look at the history of Israel, you understand exactly what occurred. That is why all of these people online everywhere in the world stating that the Israelis that are in the Palestinian region, that they took that land by the way of the UN partition plan, are Zionist. And you just have to look up what Zionists mean. Don't forget the region in which Israel operates in and the expansion thereof. Over 700,000 Palestinians were displaced and or killed. I'm just stating the fact. That is history as we know it, ladies and gentlemen. Because it just doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Because right groups argue that the E1 settlement expansion may geographically imperil Palestinian statehood, threatening any realistic two-state solution. A groundbreaking shift in ground realities. And this is not just rhetoric. And here's the question that I have for a lot of people. How are you going to have two countries on the same landmass saying, well, this is my border, that is your border? Well, Palestine is saying this is all about border. You guys just took the land by the way of the UN. And then you're enforcing your borders. That is what's going on right now. Palestine is still being divided. It's still being divided, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder what's going to happen, how they're going to resolve these issues. Because as we look, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed personal affinity for the ideology of a greater Israel, a vision tied to historic and spiritual mission, provoking sharp condemnation from Saudi Arabia. There you go. I've been calling out for this for the past month. Where's Saudi Arabia? Where's Qatar? Where's Jordan? Where's Egypt? But now these countries are provoking very harsh and sharp condemnation, again, from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, and the Palestinian Authority. Now, besides the Palestinian Authority, all these other countries do have a little bit of weight in the game. They have a little bit of influence. But I can tell you that this notion, this ideology of Prime Minister Netanyahu escalate fears of expansionist intent, undermining diplomacy across the region. This is why they're doing a ground invasion in Gaza. This is why they continue to plummet and bomb to totally decimate Gaza, where people would have to move out of the region. They have no resources to build. They have no security to protect themselves. So they will have to be displaced. And then Israel will come in, occupy, rebuild, and claim the land as their own. I know everyone sees the future. This is very, very simple, ladies and gentlemen. This is very, very simple. Whatever happened to the kids? Whatever happened to the starving Palestinians? That the aid was then stopped? Whatever happened to President Trump's notion of going in and taking over the aid efforts? This is this political theater at this point. That politicians just talk out the side of their neck, whatever sounds good at the time. I'm gonna go with the flow of things. I'm gonna win the hearts and minds of the American people because I'm gonna say this and say that. But again, whether you love Trump, hate Trump, indifferent about Trump, some things he comes full force with, and other things he's just empty talk. See, and that's why I'm not even really neutral on politicians. I say that from time to time, but I really just stand back and watch how they operate. Hopefully these people in this region can get some support from the United Nations. And the only way I think that we can influence these very large, powerful Western countries is people like you and I to speak out against it, because that's the only really power we have. Because as I told you, especially here in America, once you select and elect these people in office, you don't have any more power. The only thing that you can do is cry out, protests. And that's what people have been doing, just to show more light and kind of influence these very powerful people with a stroke of a pen or a push of a button to change the very demographics and dynamics of the environment around the world. It's really heartbreaking in some regards. Now, the creator of Ice Block, an app that alerts users to nearby ICE activity, has ignited political backlash, most notable from Attorney General Pam Bondi, who publicly warned him to watch out. This follows damage done to his wife DOJ career, widely seen as retaliatory. Of course it was. And a chilling example of political retribution in the digital age. It's the same thing that President Trump, that I reported on yesterday, that he's basically going after the cities and states that majority of the people didn't vote for him. And guess what majority of those states and cities are? Black majority. And I get it. Majority of Black people, unfortunately, vote Democrat. Why do I say unfortunately? Because the Democrats have been making empty promises ever since Lyndon B. Johnson. Even though we had very notable figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party, we've had all these people march and protest for the rights of not only Black Americans, but for immigrants who've come to this country. And now, 60 years later, we see the efforts of our death. We see the efforts of our protest. We see the efforts of our struggle being thrown in our face by the way of Kamala Harris and the Biden administration allowing 11+ million illegal immigrants in the country. Just for those immigrants, a large portion of them that have white ideology and align themselves to whiteness. And the same people come here who can barely speak English, tell Black people, you're lazy, you lazy, get off your butt. When did this laziness come about? Did it come about in Jim Crow? Did it come about when they were doing redlining? When did this come about? Because I'm not going to even go back to slavery. But after slavery, some of those same slaves went back to the same plantations in order to do those jobs because the slave masters didn't know what to do and or didn't have the workforce or manpower to do so. We were the working force in America. Then you had immigrants later to come over and help build the railroads with foundational Black Americans. You had the Chinese and you had some Hispanics to help build the railroads. The buildings that were built, the houses that were built, the government structures that were built by foundation Black Americans. Then later, the Italians came over. A lot of the service jobs, the distribution jobs, the manufacturing jobs, the production jobs were all led and conducted by foundational Black Americans. But then all of a sudden, when you allow mass immigration to come in, that totally depleted the workforce of Black Americans, where our representation were decreasing 3, 5, 7, 10% each every year of all of these low-end, low-wage, basically job market jobs that you didn't have to have any degree in. Some of them you have to have trades. We had the welding jobs. A matter of fact, and then when the Italians came in, we were playing tug of war with these welding jobs. But again, some of these business owners wouldn't allow all Black people to be fired because we were highly skilled. They were even saying that, well, the Blacks are doing a better job and working harder than a lot of the immigrants come over. Then all of a sudden, the white supremacist ideology garnered in and stated that Black people are lazy. Black people are doing this. Listen, I never condone the selling of drugs. Never. And the violence that drugs bring to our neighborhoods. Not to our hoods, not to our ghettos. That came later. Don't forget, America is the one who came up with the ghetto. The Nazis just named it the ghetto by the way of the Jews. But the formula, the strategy, the method, that came by the American government, by boxing in and redlining and giving Black people very small spaces to operate in. And they knew what it was going to do. That's why the Nazis did it to the Jews. They knew they would foster illegal activity. They know people would be trampled upon each other. They know violence would occur because people don't have much room to really move around in. Like, we know this already, but then you'll have people in the comment section, oh, you always pointing blame at these people. Here's the thing, everything needs context. And I try to provide context right here on Black Logic. Hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. Hit that like button. Because a lot of times some people need to be informed, some people need to be educated, and some people just need to shut the hell up. Unless you want to do your research. I have people to tell me all the time, have you done your research? I've done enough. Research will never end, ladies and gentlemen. You can never know more about a situation and how it has turned out. The reason why the conditions that the world, not just Black people, not just Palestinians, not just white people or Hispanic people, illegal immigrants, legal immigrants, the reason why the world is in the state that it is today is because of history. It's because what occurred in history and how those things have unfolded to present day. That is the truth of the matter. I don't know why people really don't understand that. And when it comes to this particular story, you built an app. Let me guys show you this. Let me guys blow this up for you guys. Let me show you this, show you this, show you this, because this is what I call illegal activity.
Administration steps up ICE raids and mass deportations. One tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. It's called ICE Block, and it's controversial to say the least. Senator Claire Duffy is with us now. How does this work, Claire, and what are the legal implications?
Yeah, John, I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of immigrations and customs enforcement officers. So he says he does not want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether if they want. So you open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area, and then everybody who uses the platform within 5 miles of that sighting will get a push alert. This is a free iPhone app. It is anonymous. Aaron says he doesn't collect any.
It should be illegal. I'm just going to say it. This should be illegal. Whoever created this app needs a federal order to take it down immediately. This app should be illegal. This app should be because this app can be used for more than what it's worth. Even though ICE Block, I'm going to alert people who are illegally in the country. Now, granted, given the very short history, President Trump is in office. He's been revoking people's legal residency and even their legal standing with H-1B visas. But a lot of these people, visas have expired, and they've been speaking anti-American sentiment. So I understand. But I want you guys to think about the expansion of this app. Like, case in point, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical of myself and my skin tone, but this is for everybody, because there's white drug dealers, Black drug dealers, Hispanic, everybody deal drugs, Asian drug dealers, they do fentanyl, some people do coke, crack, cocaine, weed, whatever the drug may be. I don't care. Everybody, every race sell drugs. Let me point that out. Now, second, if I'm a drug dealer, this might as well be named Police Block. Because if I am a drug dealer and I see police officers, I'm just going to put on the ICE Block app, oh, police is in this area. Guess what that's going to do. Man, I can't even get my words out today, because this is so idiotic. This is so anti-crime. I mean, pro-crime. This is pro-crime. My apologies. This is pro-crime. Because if I'm a drug dealer, or if I steal cars, or I commit crimes, the only thing I need is a network of people to report law enforcement anywhere. Because guess what? If you're going to federalize DC police, then they have within their jurisdiction and authority, if they expect someone to be a legal immigrant and or expired visa, they can quote unquote stop and frisk. Let me see your freedom papers, quote unquote. Then I can just, oh, there's police in this area. They could be ICE. So let me do a push notification. So drug dealers, people who are committing crimes know exactly where the police is. And that doesn't stop crime. that only shifts crime. And so we're telling people, because you are illegally in the country and or you may have a record of your visa being expired, we're going to alert you for you to evade and avoid law enforcement. What in the hell are we doing? Why is this person being allowed to put up an app to allow people who are illegally in the country? This blows my mind. I'm surprised they haven't invoked any sort of federal or state mandate to order Apple to pull down this app. And if they ever try to get it on Android, to pull down this app. This is ridiculous. This can be used for so much more. And I know that they know that. Ladies and gentlemen, they have an app to alert people and potentially people who are conducting illegal activity to be notified when the police are within 5 miles of the crimes being committed and or people who are illegally and potentially expired visas illegally in the country. And I know what you guys are going to say. Well, we've had history of President Trump revoking people's residency and or revoking their visas, even though they were legally in the country. I understand. Sometimes in war, and I know this is not war because I'm like, these are innocent people come over here for opportunities. And even though there's, very little crime that people who are legally in the country, they come here for their families and this and that. I got it. If you guys are biblical in any source of the word, did you know that God sees sin as sin? He doesn't see, if you steal, it's the same as if you kill. Did you know that? Sin is sin in the eyes of the Lord. I know some of us just can't comprehend that. I know we can't get around it. When you're breaking the law is the law, regardless of how you feel, regardless of your moral and ethics. And you may not understand or even like what I'm saying, but this is the truth. The law is the law. Not all laws in America are ethical. Not all laws in America are moral. But it's the law.